Welcome to Talk Across America. I'm Doug Miles, and we're here in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. Joining us now on our book talk segment, great to welcome one of the author of a very interesting book for people that are interested in homeschooling their kids. She's had a lot of experience doing it. It's called The Brave Learner, Finding Everyday Magic in Homeschool Learning and Life. We're joined today by Julie Bogart. She's the founder of The Brave Writer, and it's also a very popular podcast all about teaching and writing and all that. She joined us by telephone today. And Julie, good to talk with you. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Very nice to be here.
Good
I'm good. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you too. Good to talk to another fellow broadcaster and podcaster. So I'm glad we're making headway with the podcasting world. Radio's good, but podcasting is good too.
Yes, agreed.
Well, first of all, I guess I've heard a lot about homeschooling. A friend of mine, his daughter has been primarily homeschooled. She lives out in California, and I guess more and more people are doing it. So it must be paying off, right?
Absolutely. We know by the census that there are about 2 million families who homeschool in the United States today, but that doesn't even account for people who do part-time enrollment or some hybrid form of education. So it's quite a large number now of parents who are taking their kids' educations into their own hands.
I guess it's a little bit misunderstood because you still have to, at least from what I've understood or heard about, you still are involved with the school system in some way just to make sure, I guess, the curriculum is okay, right? But is the school system still involved?
It really varies by state, actually. Kentucky and Texas, for example, don't need you to notify, and you don't have to test or prove that you even did anything. So,
okay.
Every state's different. But the bottom line is this. Home education in most of the states is something that you do independently. You have either testing or some kind of certification with a teacher at the end of the year where you do sort of a show and tell of everything your child learned that year, and then they just verify that you moved up a grade level. There is not a requirement, however, that you test at a certain level. The point of that stipulation, that there isn't this heavy-duty, heavy-handed requirement, is that students actually learn at their own pace. The standards we have in school are set because we're trying to move large numbers of kids through grade levels all at a certain pace.
Right.
But at home, oh my goodness, we can tailor-make it. You can have a child in 8th grade math, 5th grade reading, and 7th grade science, right? The same child, because their development may accommodate those levels.
You hear these horror stories now of what's going on in public school. Not everywhere, I guess, but a lot of places. And you almost wonder why anybody would want to send their kids to public school nowadays. So I'm sure there's some good ones out there, but boy, you hear some bad stuff going on, right?
I think with the public school situation, two things have happened in the last 10 years that have been really unhappy experiences. One is, maybe more like 20 years, but one is this relentless need to live up to a Common Core and use standardized testing to achieve certain outcomes. It really strips learning of its power. Kids learn, adults learn because they're provoked by curiosity and they are drawn forward by some mystery or surprise, some adventure that is adjacent to that learning. Even rote skills are not interesting unless they have meaningful use and meaningful application for the people using them. So part of what's happened is we've kind of decoupled the power of learning from these outcomes. And then the second problem, I think, with current public education is just the fear factor around, violence in schools.
Right.
We see a lot of people coming into homeschooling just because of school shootings and, just the current climate that we're in.
Do you recommend, Julie, I know you've homeschooled your children. Did you start them, from kindergarten age, or do you recommend maybe going to public school for a couple of years and then doing it later, or does that vary?
It definitely varies. In my family, I started from the time they were in kindergarten, but I had 5 different approaches to high school. So my oldest son went all the way through homeschool to the end of high school. He took 1 part-time enrollment math class at our local high school, and then my daughter did 3 or 4 like extracurricular style classes at the local high school and did the core subjects at home. And then I had a daughter, my youngest, who did all 4 years of high school at a public school. So I am in no way opposed to public education. But what I think homeschooling has to offer is we have a lot of insight into the transaction of what it means to learn and be motivated to learn, because we've been doing it in the laboratory of our homes for the last 40 years. So in my book, The Brave Learner, I distill the properties of what it is to follow a child's curiosity craving, to help them expand the categories of what an education does for them. That it isn't only to get into college or for some distant future career, that it actually has bearing on their meaningful loves right now, whether that's riding horses or playing video games or skateboarding, you know?
And I know in the book, too, we don't have time today to go into detail, but you break it down and how to put different curricula together, too. So that's important, right? For
that's
math,
right.
you have some math, you have some English, and all that kind of stuff.
That's right. How do they actually achieve their academic goals and keep their kids interested? That's what the book's all about.
What about, now again, if you're homeschooled, can kids still be involved with, clubs in school or sports? I mean, they can still do that, right?
Yeah. It depends on the school district. I mean, there are some that don't, but there are plenty now, more than ever, that allow you to participate on sports or be in acting or take 2 classes a day. Just check with your local school district. What I recommend when you are being a parent who is invested in your child's education is really making sure that the child has the resources they need to be engaged, happy learners. Too often we tell kids, not everything can be fun, and you need to get this done. You don't always have to like it. But the truth is, the mysteries of the universe, math, science, history, social sciences, literature, these should not be gotten through. We should catch on to their vibrant power. And in my book, I talk about methods to help those experiences come to life. I describe, for instance, a thing we call poetry tea time, where you pair the reading of poetry with setting a beautiful table, candles, teapots, cookies or scones, and then each child reads a poem from an array of poetry books from the library. And we just take pleasure in the celebration of poetry rather than in the teaching of it. Over time, your kids actually develop a poetic appetite, and then they start to notice the themes, or they start to notice those properties that make a poem. But we don't start by saying, here's what you should learn, here's the poem, here's what's in it, now let's test you. Right. We start by creating an appetite for poetry through enriching the circumstances and giving some freedom of exploration.
That's great. I guess I guess some people that would say homeschooling may not be as good. I just heard this from people saying, how about like just learning how to be with other kids and the social aspect of just being in a classroom. Do you have any answer to those people?
Yeah, for sure. So, for instance, we had a homeschooling co-op here in Cincinnati that had 300 kids in it. It was 100 families. The classes were taught by adults like me. And so my kids had that every single week on a Monday. Mm-hmm. 2 of my older kids joined a Shakespeare acting company when they were in high school. And all the students in the company were from public and private school. They were the only homeschooled kids. Every one of my 5 kids has played on a sports team. They've volunteered. I know kids who have worked in animal shelters, kids who've worked in hospice. There are so many opportunities now for homeschooled kids to participate in community activities that there is no shortage of socialization possibilities for them.
Great. Yeah, I guess that's again what people sometimes say. Well, you learn more maybe by just being in a classroom as opposed to just being at home. But that's not the case. So that's good to hear.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, a classroom's a fairly unnatural context. It's all age mates, all for randomly selected, put into this room. Which is fine, but as an adult, that just never happens again. I noticed my kids were involved with adults, with younger children, with their age mates. I had a son who got into astronomy, and we used to visit with these hobbyist astronomers. I had a daughter who joined an adult vintage dance community so that she could participate and learn dance. So my kids, and what I've noticed with many homeschool kids, they're incredibly comfortable with adults because they have never seen adults as being this sort of punitive authority over them. They see them as a resource for learning.
Yeah, great ideas in the book, a lot of them in there. And again, it's called The Brave Learner, Finding Everyday Magic in Homeschool Learning and Life. We've been talking with Julie Bogart today. And Julie, give out your website if you would. People get more information about the book and your podcast.
Wonderful. Go to thebravelearner.com. We have links for where you can buy the book. Also, a free 92-page digital download that goes with the book as kind of a workbook, something like a journal to work through. And then my podcast is called A Brave Writer's Life in Brief. If you just look up Brave Writer Julie Bogart, it'll come right up on iTunes or Stitcher, and I'd love to have you along for the ride.
Great. Julie, pleasure talking to you. Thanks for being with us today. Hopefully we can do it again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us today on Talk Across America. Please visit our website at dougmilesmedia.com for more great interviews and content. And if you're interested in any of the books we talk about on the program, please click the Amazon link on our website. It helps support the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again real soon here from beautiful Sarasota, Florida.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.